joining us. I'm giving a little addition to all of Nick's salad making. This is what we do on cheat day, is I typically make a dessert. So today I'm going to demonstrate making marshmallows, and particularly lemon verbena marshmallows. So lemon verbena, Nick has been growing this in the garden, and it's currently my favorite thing on the planet. It's delicious. And I think it's going to give a really light, fresh flavor to what are normally kind of one-note sweets. So with that,
so excited.
So with that, let's get started.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so really the first step in making marshmallow is about simple syrup. It's basically just converting sugar into a syrup. So for that, we typically use just regular white sugar. So this is 14.5 ounces, as well as about half a cup of water. So I would recommend actually weighing out ingredients when you're using them. When I began using a kitchen scale, it revolutionized my baking and especially allowed me to switch back and forth between metric and imperial measures between American recipes and everywhere else in the world. So that's super helpful. So definitely recommend that. And then additionally, for marshmallows, what happens a lot of times is that when it begins to cook, the sugar actually might crystallize, which is exactly not what you want it to do. So typically we will use some sort of inverted sugar, liquid sugar, to prevent that. In my case, I'm using honey, but you can also use glucose syrup, corn syrup, or agave. So just pour that in. Redo it again.
Cool.
Is it going?
Yep.
Okay, so I've got everything in the pot. Now I just want to give it a slight stir to make sure that everything is moistened and, mostly mixed together. Of course, the honey isn't going to be fully incorporated, but it will incorporate once things start cooking. So a key thing here is you don't actually want to agitate it too much. The reason for this is that if you get sugar on the sides, and it might start to burn before the entire batch cooks. So you want to avoid that. So now we've started the stove, and we're going to put the top on the pot. What this does is it allows condensation to form inside of the pot and actually washes down any sugar crystals that are stuck around it. So that number one, the sugar crystals won't burn, and number two, so that the crystallization doesn't make the rest of your syrup crystallize halfway through. Okay, so we do that for a couple of minutes, and then we start to look at the temperature of the mixture. So one of the things that makes marshmallows actually hold up their shape is gelatin. So what we're going to do while our marshmallow syrup is cooking is we're going to bloom the gelatin. Now, gelatin in its package is simply a powder, or you can get it also in sheets, but it is dry. And so by putting it in water, it allows it to start to activate and also makes sure that there aren't just like wads of gummy in anything that you make. So to do this, to bloom the gelatin, we sprinkle it over some water. Pretty simple. I would also recommend measuring the gelatin before you use it, because things can get hairy with the packets. There we go. So we let that sit for a while our mixture cooks. So now I hear that our syrup is boiling.
I'm not going to get it.
Okay, so we're going to take off the lid and just swirl it gently. You don't want to move it around too much because sugar crystals, but we want to move it around to distribute the heat a bit, and then put the hot lid back on.
Yep.
Okay, now what we do is we put on the candy thermometer. Now the candy thermometer is important because it tells us to what stage our sugar syrup gets. Basically how viscous it will be once you take it off of the heat. So we'll set that up, making sure that the thermometer doesn't touch the bottom. And now it's just time to wait for it to get between 242 and 245 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so now, again, while our sugar syrup is cooking, we're going to get the pan ready. And as I'm sure you know, marshmallows can get a bit sticky, especially when it's still hot sugar. So we're going to grease the pan. Now it's really important for you not to use any liquid fat, so no oil. I'm going to use what we call in the States shortening, and here in South Africa, what is called white margarine. So I'm going to put some white margarine straight into the pan and just rub it around, making sure to get in all of the cracks, all of the corners, because otherwise that stuff will stick. Okay, so our sugar syrup has gotten to the temperature 245. So now I'm putting my gelatin into the mixer, and now my trusty assistant will bring me the sugar syrup. Trusty assistant. So now that the sugar syrup is to this stage, it's called softball stage in candy making, and it's still quite hot. So what I'm doing is I'm pouring it down the side of the mixing bowl so that it won't burn the gelatin. Has a little bit of time to cool, and then we're going to start the mixing. So first you'll put it on medium-high for a few minutes. Okay, so now this is for the last bit. Now I have mixed this quite a bit, and as you can see, it's gotten quite a bit thicker, and it's close to tripling in size, which is really where we want it. So in about the last minute of mixing is when we actually want to add our flavors. So in this case, I'm going to add a teaspoon of peppermint extract. And this peppermint extract is surely the slowest peppermint extract that has ever been. So look at this gorgeousness. It's tripled in size, it's pretty firm, and so the bowl is warm but not hot. And so just for the finishing touch, because this is peppermint, I'm going to add a little bit of pink food coloring. So a few drops. And set to mix just a little bit more. So go ahead and clean off the beater. I use my fingers because that's how my grandmama taught me, but I'm sure you could use a spatula for this as well. It just gets in there a little bit better. Now we want to take it and using a greased spatula, pour it into the pan. Now you need to do this relatively quickly because the marshmallow is nearly cool and will set up, and then you will have a sticky mess trying to get it into the pan. I've used an 8x8 pan because it gives you a little thicker marshmallows, which I think just look gorgeous. Okay, so now we're finishing off these marshmallows. They've been sitting for 6 hours. So now we're ready to go. They could sit longer, but Nick says no, they need to happen now. So first thing, and I could have done this earlier and I just chose not to, was actually put a mixture of powdered sugar and cornstarch or corn flour, so half and half. And just sprinkle, just so they're coated. And so this means that they won't stick to the cutting board, they won't stick anywhere, and we'll put more of this on in a little bit.
Yeah.
So basically you just have to gingerly unstick the marshmallows from the pan. It would be much easier if you had parchment paper, but I didn't have any today, so this is what we're working with. So hopefully, because you've oiled your pan or put fat on your pan properly, the marshmallows will peel right out once you've unstuck them. And here we go. And boom.